Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we got a frog in the pot, but can the Red Raiders get the water to boil? We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And new customers, if you join today, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man, and great to be back at United Supermarkets Arena coming up tonight. We're talking Red Raider hoops as Texas Christian is coming to town. Texas Tech trying to exact a little revenge following a loss in Fort Worth in the first meeting. Feels like there's been a ton of basketball played since that game actually happened, Chris. It hadn't been that long ago, but life in the Big 12 Conference seems like there's been about 15 rounds worth of boxing going on since that one went down. So Texas Tech with the chance to do something nice here on the home floor, continue to hold some serve, even though you've taken an L there, still have had a very good home record so far this season. And Texas Christian, a good basketball team, I think a beatable basketball team, but this would be a valuable win for your resume if you're able to get it.
Yeah, well, this is just a tough matchup for Texas Tech, and TCU is very good. I haven't studied it enough to understand why their net ranking is about 12 lower than yours is. They're not ranked in the top 25. You are. I think they're around like 36 in the net. You're around 26, 25-ish, somewhere around there. They have won more road games, though, than anybody in the league, 5 of them, 3 of them being league games, and then 2 of them out of conference. So be leery of that. And, and some of these, the way your schedule shapes up the rest of the year, some of these games are not, I don't want to say bad losses, but they're going to be like games that, because you're favored tonight by 5 or 6 points. But, again, not going to be easy. TCU is one of the oldest teams in the country. I think they're the third oldest team. They've got, their combined core has scored, I think, over 8,000 points in college. And they play 10 deep, and I think Warren will play tonight. That's my assumption, so we'll see. I'm hopeful, I think, but again, if not, you're much thinner than they are. Because you only played 7 dudes against Iowa State. But you go back to January the 30th, I guess it was, you lose by 7 points. You had an 11-point lead in the first half. They go on an 11-0 run, and it's tie game. And at one point, they were up, I think, 10 or 11 points, and you kind of, kept it close. I think that we remember – the things I remember from that game, 12 offensive rebounds by TCU to just 4. And that was like a 14-point difference. And maybe the biggest reason why you lost that game. But Micah Peavy, 4 for 4 from deep. Can't let him do that tonight. Now, Trevion Tennyson went for like 23. He is a legit shooter. And so those were some problems. And then, maybe we have no Tony Padilla on the call tonight, who called a bogus flop on Pop Isaacs when the game was, I want to say, 63-57, and here you go. And then it changed because of an incorrect, erroneous, bogus call that was bad and shouldn't have happened and changed the game. And I could keep saying it, but we get the point. But that's kind of, I do remember their length and athleticism being a problem, and it will be tonight. TCU ultimately wants to they want to turn it into a pickup game. They want to turn it into, fast pace and all that, because their athleticism and their length is going to take over. The uglier it gets, the better that they are, because they've got more players that can just kind of get up and down and run and when it's not necessarily pretty or whatever, that's when they're at their best. That's why they're so difficult to play against, because you could run your stuff perfectly and they come down and it doesn't look exactly right, but they're still producing and can score a variety of different ways because their best offense is getting the ball up on the rim and then going to get it and turning you over and then running. They want to speed you up. So we'll see what we get tonight.
Well, obviously, if we're getting Warren Washington back on the floor, and don't know that that's a guarantee, but if there's some confidence that he could be back out there, then that changes things dramatically for Texas Tech. And when you're talking about, it seems like so many matchups going into or each game this year, we've had to talk about some length disadvantage for Texas Tech, even with Washington on the floor. So if he's back out there, that would be great news for the Red Raiders. And kind of curious to see specifically with Robert Jennings if we continue to see some trending in the right direction. And as you pointed out a couple of games ago, even some scenarios where we'd seen them both on the floor together.
Yeah, and if you remember back to that TCU game too, I forgot to point out earlier, this was the first time that we'd really seen in a meaningful game or a tough game, whatever, that not only Warren but Darion Williams battled foul trouble, and they had to sit for various spurts of that game, and both finished with 4 personal fouls. And I think with Robert's emergence, because I tell you what's kind of happened here is that, Lamar Washington is just he hadn't played a lot. And maybe they have decided we can get bigger by simply, playing those 3 guards just more and not rotating a 4th one in, but playing guys like, Robert or Kyron a bit more against some of the length problems and all that. The question though becomes, do you play Darion at the 3 and then just a couple of guards in there, and maybe that's a little less time for Kerwin, or it's a little less time for Chance or whatever. There's some different things as you kind of spin it down. But yeah, I think Robert and maybe Kyron a little bit, they've continued to kind of earn more trust, earn some more playing time. But it does create, while you it increases your size, it does create less ability to handle the ball and an offense and create and all that kind of stuff when one of those guys that we just mentioned would be on the bench in lieu of more size. But yeah, it's a great point.
You mentioned Lamar Washington. I've been surprised to see his minutes just dwindle down. And, I guess coming into this season, I really thought he would be a guy that kind of continued to ascend and become a bigger factor. I thought, as a dude that was green behind the ears last year, that he still gave you some impactful minutes as far as some that you had available to you. And, sometimes during a ball game now, watching the camera go back and forth up and down the floor, and then for whatever reason, I look at the bench and I'm like, oh yeah, Lamar Washington's over there. I've kind of just forgotten about the guy. I'm surprised that he hadn't factored in, I guess, more heavily as the season has gone along.
And he was playing 8 to 10 minutes a game in a reserve role, and really since he missed the Cincinnati game with an illness, he hasn't really been seen much on the court. I don't know whether he's still kind of feeling the effects of that, or he just got out of rhythm, or they found something when he was out and like, okay, this is working better, or we like this better. I don't know. Lamar's been around. He seems like himself. I haven't talked to him. Hey, you feeling? Whatever. But that's kind of, you could pinpoint that to when it really kind of changed for him or his minutes on the floor. And again, that's the thing about basketball teams. The season is so long. Baseball teams are no different. Football teams are no different. But the season is so long that you kind of take these different, paths to get to the end. And, you deal with injury, or in this case, maybe just being sick, and it kind of takes you out of rhythm or whatever. And guys play their way into more minutes and out of far fewer minutes, and on it goes. That's the fun part of it, because I'm watching last night with that bloodbath that was Iowa State and Houston, and I was just curious in the general result. But Malik Wilson, former Red Raider, that they didn't think was athletic enough to play here, and all that, but he's playing for the second-ranked team in the country. I digress, but he didn't really
play. I'm picking up a tone in your voice.
Just very frustrating. Like last year, the previous offseason, you go to the Sweet 16, you get all that. It's like, I just don't think Malik's athletic enough.
Ship him out.
I don't think he can do enough. But then Kelvin Simpson's like, dude, come on. And I'm like, what, you know? But point is, he wasn't playing a ton and barely played when Tech played Houston. Last night, he plays a ton of minutes. So prime example of somebody that wasn't really heavily in the rotation now is very much so. And so, you know, Lamar's kind of gone. I wouldn't say he was playing a ton of minutes previously, but yeah, it's an interesting point. But bottom line is,
first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the sports calendar keeps turning and the action never stops with America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. There are so many ways to spice up any action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NBA.
Bottom line is, you know, tonight you really need Pop to find his groove again. I think he's, what did we say yesterday? He's like 5 for 33 in his last 3 games from the field. You know, and just struggling. See, and against TCU though, he lit them up because he went for 25 points in that first one. I wanted to look at it to be sure, but you need to shoot it well. But this is you got a chance here, man, to really finish up strong and make some things interesting based on your schedule, but you got to win these home games. And we all know that. And people are going to look at the remaining road games you have and assume, God, well, you can, you know, and you can win some of these road games, if not all of them, but it doesn't just like work like that. It's very difficult and all that. Teams are scratching and clawing and fighting for their coach's survival or a tournament bid or just any hope to, you know, or a senior day, as a matter of fact. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get on the road, but these home games are going to be tricky. But TCU is going to be a tough matchup. But it would be really fun to beat Jamie Dixon because he was feeling himself the last time that we left Schollmeyer Arena. He was feeling pretty good about his team.
Well, a lot of changes in the law, but I thought that was still illegal to do in public. Maybe at least out in the 806. And I imagine this maybe the only like blood bank guarantee that I can give you here today that Jamie Dixon will be outside of the coach's box at a time or two, possibly tonight. So let's keep a close eye on it, boys. Law and order every time. Let's keep them in that coach's box or send them to the locker room. Send them down the Bill Self Trail of Tears that we got last time around. Chris, I'm curious, what do you see, whether in game or during practice time or in between games, things like that? What is the approach to coaching Pop Isaacs through this kind of thing that you see from Grant McCaslin and those assistants? Because he's one of your most talented players, obviously, but has gone through one of the roughest individual stretches in some recent games that maybe anybody's gone through this year. How do you handle a guy like that, or how have they handled a guy like that?
Well, he's still been effective at various things. I think what we're talking about here is just the ball hadn't gone through the net. And I think, is he taking – I think Grant, that's the fun part about Grant, and I admire his demeanor from this standpoint. He really gets on the guys, but it's never personal, and then it's over. You know, like it's real. There's not a lot of mental game plan with guys. I think that he's able to not, you know, talking about the head coach, he's not able to, you know, or he doesn't get way high and really low and all that. He understands guys go through, you know, a shooting slump, if you will, if we want to call it that. And I think that's what this is. It's a mini one. And but as long as he's doing the right things, I think, you know, Grant's going to encourage him to continue to, you know, try to score and create and all those things. Now, if there's ever been an ill-timed shot or one earlier in the shot clock or one outside of the flow of the game, that may be when Grant stomps his foot and was like, hey, no, like let's try something different. But I think that it's pretty much because, I mean, back to my comment yesterday when on the show, when I said something to him after the game about, how competitive they were and they competed, and it's a credit to everybody in the organization. And he's like, well, we didn't come here to play close, right? Well,
Right.
So I think after maybe this was the Baylor game. It was one of these games in the last couple of weeks, and and maybe it was in fact the TCU game, as a matter of fact, when he had Chris, if you just look at it, I think it may have been after this TCU game. And I asked Grant about Joe Toussaint, because he has, as the stat sheet tells me, 9 assists but 8 turnovers.
Yep.
And I kind of just like, man, if you'd have gotten a more evened out night from Joe, things could have gone differently. And he straight up took up for Joe. It's like, man, some of those, it's like interceptions. Some of those turnovers, not his fault at all, miscommunication. But he goes, he's trying to find this balance of scoring and all that. But he took up for his guy, and I respected it. And I think he would do the same thing about Pop too, in that you just got to let these guys, you trust them at this point in the season. You're gonna have to live with some of the bad and then embrace the good when you get it. But because what else are you gonna do? I mean, you're gonna sit him down for longer periods, and he may be getting tired and hitting a bit of a wall. I mean, this happens to really good dudes in this league, and he's one of them. So. But I just, that's the least of my worries. But tonight would be a good night for him to kind of get it back going again.
Man, probably a change from some previous regimes that we can all appreciate, because we have seen some psychological warfare from some previous head coaches. I mean, going back to Gillespie through the Beard era. I mean, some of those days are like Full Metal Jacket days, just twist their brain inside out, and some more effective than others. Again, as I always say, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but I have appreciated, and I'm not down there on the sideline. It's kind of difficult to read body language or any facial expression when you're in the building, if you're not particularly close there to the bench. But some of what I can see, watching an away game through a television camera, I've appreciated the way that it has seemed like Grant McCasland will really coach his guys really, really hard and in a very detailed way, but he has seemingly struck some balance when it comes to patting them on the back as well, and kind of encouraging and lifting them up at the same time. That's a difficult balance to find. Before we move on from the basketball conversation, Chris, I think last NCAA tournament projections I saw had Texas Tech around a 6 seed kind of territory. You've got, I think 6 regular season games left, splitting them home and away. You've got the Stillwater, Orlando, and Morgantown as far as some road trip destinations. You got Texas Christian, UT, and Baylor coming to your house as far as who is on the way to Lubbock. Got to say, nothing is settled, obviously, but man, feeling pretty good to be sitting here as we near the end of February and having Texas Tech with a little space between them and the bubble. Now, you could be right back there or worse, obviously, if you don't take care of business, but I think by any measure, at least from my fan perspective, a little bit ahead of schedule. And I'm sure Grant McCasland wouldn't agree with that statement either, but feeling pretty good about where you are as a program as you get close to the final month.
Yeah, I won't be asking him anything similar in a post-game interview.
Right. Hey, are you surprised you guys are not on the bubble or
out
of the tournament?
He's like, Chris, man, I'm worried about practice in the morning. What are you talking about? I know, Coach. I'm sorry. I think some people feel like, in the industry, that one more win in the league is enough to get you in. 2 more wins in the regular season, not counting Big 12 tournament and all that stuff. Yeah, that cements it. Sharpie, whatever. And if you get to that 500 mark, but you got a chance to be significantly better than that. But it's gonna, what can you finish 4-2? Can you finish 5-1? Can you win them all? I mean, it's gonna take remaining healthy and getting the big fella back and staying healthy and all those things. But You've got to, because of those 6 games left, the only ranked team is Baylor. That's it. I mean, but none of these are going to be easy. You just can't. I mean, Texas is like desperate right now. Baylor is going to be very, very good when you get them at that point. And TCU is as athletic and one of the deepest, tallest teams that you're going to see all year. And we've already seen that movie and how it ended. And I just, I think with Central Florida, again, not much margin for error. And they've been really good at home on some Saturdays and some days in general. Others, not so much. Are they quitting? Are they shut? You just don't know what you're going to get over the weekend. Same thing with Mike Boynton and then Josh Eilert, that are coaching Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Are they back next year? Is this like, the last stand and we got to finish strong or else? I mean, there's just all kinds of things surrounding those teams, but these are all winnable, but you're going to have to go out and win them, like nobody's going to roll over and go, we're just kind of done this year. Like, just take it. It doesn't work like that. Not in this league anyway. So, but tonight will be one of your tougher ones, in my opinion, of what's left, just because of the matchup. And it's just kind of scary a little bit, just because you can guard well and you can, shoot it well. Cause I mean, Cowan, let's look at this. You made 14 threes in your last game against TCU. 14, and you couldn't keep them off the foul line. They shot 32 free throws to your 14. I mean, you were 14 of 28. You're 50%. If I tell you right now you're going to make 14 threes tonight, you probably are just like me and going, how bad did you beat them?
Feeling pretty good.
You're feeling pretty good. And that's what you got in Fort Worth. And it was not, you never really put fear in them of getting over the hump and putting a real scare into them especially after the flop call. So I just say that, like, tonight, man, you need all your crowd, and you're going to need a good performance from your kids to get out with the win. And this one is it's going to be a tough one.
Nothing but in-state opponents left coming to town as far as the regular season is concerned. So a lot of fun and meaningful, obviously, to beat any of those teams for purposes on the recruiting trail, at the water cooler at your office, or wherever you may be. These are always big ones. So looking forward to getting that stretch started with Texas Christian coming up tonight. And, of course, we'll be processing it on the other side for better or worse. Before we get out of here today, let's make sure the chessboard is set properly and everybody knows where the horsey guy and the tower guy and the pawn guy, you can tell I'm a chess player, right? These are industry terms, so try to follow along here, are all standing, because we got a big day as it relates to college sports in general. First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And if you've got a small business looking to hire new employees, you're hoping for the biggest pool of top-tier candidates possible. And that's exactly why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has all the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, all on one easy-to-use and secure platform. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They've got a far-reaching network of more than 1 billion professionals, and hiring the best becomes easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within only 24 hours. With all the hats you wear as a business owner, the time or resources to hire quality candidates can be hard to come by, but LinkedIn carries the load for you with the quick, easy, and intuitive process. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Now, on yesterday's show, we talked NCAA tournament-wise and how obviously that factors into some of these larger conversations that are at play. But if you haven't checked the calendar, it is February 20th, which means today is the day that supposedly we're going to get some vote on a college football playoff format. But, of course, that will follow votes on other things like how much money do Washington State and Oregon State deserve as the lone remaining Pac-Deuce members? How much money does Southern Methodist get as an Atlantic Coast Conference member? Now, what we've got happening essentially, Chris, when it comes to the playoff format, you may be well versed in by now if you're paying any attention to this. It's a 5+7 model or a 6+6 model. Obviously, the 6 was previously constructed in the sense that you would get 6 automatic qualifying championship bids from 5 power leagues and 1 group of 5 league. There are no longer 5 power leagues after the Pac-12's destruction. So now we're looking at 4 and still a group of 5 champion, which would give you the 5 plus then 7 at large bids. But part of what is also interesting going into today, Chris, was the fact that we had, what, a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, reported by itself, which is always just an interesting wrench thrown in this system, ESPN reporting itself that, hey, we've come to an agreement. We've got, in principle, an agreement on an extended college football playoff television package. And then you have some others on the other side of that saying, whoa, 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 that actually is not the case. Now, part of that was from a MAC commissioner sending out to his conference's athletics directors the fact that that's incorrect. That reporting, to use the word again, is erroneous. Now, what's required here is a unanimous vote to actually have this come to pass. So this can kind of be like, I don't know, thinking about Congress or something where, yeah, let's all bluster and bluff in the newspaper all week. Well, we don't have an agreement. And you think, damn, how could you ever get to a unanimous vote? And then all of a sudden, boom, overnight, hey, we're friends. Unanimous vote. The sucker is passed. But what I thought really interesting about that ESPN part of it, Chris, was that it had to be an intentional leak of some kind or an intentional reporting of some kind when they knew that actually, in fact, it had not been agreed to. So what is going to fall today whenever the dust all settles? What does it look like? Only God knows. But I think, Chris, I feel pretty securely that we will be sitting in a 5+7 era when it comes to 5 automatic bids, 7 at large bids. Would you agree with me on that, or do you still think there's any shot of some wild card type of format? Because I can't even imagine what that would look like, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating the way this was reported by itself, as you mentioned, ESPN reporting on its own news, and maybe it's posturing, but always was fascinating to me that you've agreed to pay in the billions on something that you're not even sure what the format is.
Right,
I don't know what we're getting, but we want it bad. And here's all the money. Here's all the trucks. You can hear the beeping going on. They're backing up right now. Just take it all. And again, I don't even know what's for dinner, but we want it. We're ready to eat. That part was very peculiar to me. And posturing, was it public pressure? Like, you better take this deal or we're going to walk. I mean, I don't. You'd love to know the behind the scenes, because who does that? Who buys something when you don't know what you're getting? I mean, unless you're buying a lottery ticket, but that's not what this was. This was, so I thought that was very fascinating. And I'll believe an agreed to format when I see it, because the one thing that we know about this group is they don't agree on much.
On anything,
and their MO is basically to we're going to shelve those talks. We're going to kick the can down the road and just delay and talk about it some more. I mean, all that stuff. And so I'll believe it when I see it in an official capacity. You may get some hearsay, but again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they agree to it and stamp it. Part of me, man, is I don't know if I trust the SEC and the Big Ten. I don't know.
Really? Why? What have they ever done?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So part of me is, and again, like, okay, you're agreeing to what the format. So we're going to stay at 12. At large is, I just think there's going to be some caveat. If they agree to this, there's going to be some caveat that benefits I don't know. Well, call me a cynic, glass half empty. But, and if you do agree to it, for how long? Is this just like we're going to agree to like a couple more years after, so 27 and 28, or is this a long term? So anyway, I'm just,
I think that's
eyebrow raised.
I think that's on the money in the sense that we'll probably get a couple of years out of this, because you've got to agree to a format for these first couple of years of the 12-team playoff. But then beyond that, what the playoff even looks like, who it includes, how big it is still left to be determined. Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, was asked, are you still committed to this beyond 25? And he said, sure, but it's got to be right. So basically, I don't know. He could have just said, I don't know. We'll see, right?
That's what I'm saying, man.
What's right for them may not be right for everybody else.
I want to know his definition of It needs to be right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of different levels to this here. The management committee, which is essentially represented of the 11 conference commissioners. And of course, from upon high, Notre Dame's athletic director, who gets like the Phil Jackson seat. It's a much taller seat at the table than everybody else's. And then when they're agreed upon it, they pass it to the board of managers, which is comprised of university presidents. So we'll see what comes to be, but this is happening today. So keep an eye out there for what our future will hold as far as college football fans and college sports in general, because again, the breakoff or autonomy interest, things like that, obviously are going to be impacted or maybe somewhat revealed. Maybe there are things to learn about what some autonomy intentions are as it relates to these type of decisions here today. So still some things to process as the week goes on, but they will be raising their hands and saying yay or nay today on supposedly a college football playoff format. Excited to see what that looks like whenever the cookie finally crumbles. Chris, appreciate the time as always, my man. Getting ready for hoops coming up tonight. Hope you enjoyed the basketball game. We'll be back to chop it up on tomorrow's episode, hopefully talking about a win over the Horned Frogs. Enjoyed it and looking forward to tomorrow.
And if the cookie does crumble, I hope it's oatmeal raisin. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I tend to like it.
You're your own man.
Hope to see everybody at the arena tonight. Your team will desperately need you. This is one of final 3 remaining chances to see these guys in a home basketball game, and they're dwindling. So anyways, hope to see everybody there. It's a very, very important game for all kinds of reasons. So anyway, enjoyed it, Cal, and we'll talk to you in the morning and break it all down.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you and appreciate everybody else for being out there. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.